Imagine waking every day to the same sound, at the same hour, in the same silence. What would that do to a human mind if you were listening at night? Tell me where you are and what time it is. There is a certain hour of night when the world feels held in place. Not asleep exactly, but paused. It is in that quiet hour that this story begins. Not with an event, or a date, or a name, but with a feeling. Stone walls resting in darkness, wooden beams breathing softly, a monastery settled into itself like an old animal that knows where it belongs. Nothing urgent is happening. Nothing needs to be solved. Time is not in a hurry here. Somewhere inside the thick walls, a bell waits. It does not ring yet. It simply waits, as bells often do, with patience shaped by repetition. Around it, the air is cool and steady. The scent is faintly of wax and old wood and last evening's smoke. Outside, the land is dark, perhaps damp, perhaps frosted, depending on the season. Inside, the monks sleep, each in his narrow space, wrapped in wool, breathing slowly, their lives arranged around a rhythm that has been repeated so many times. It no longer feels like a decision. When the bell finally sounds, it does not surprise anyone. The sound moves through stone corridors with a dull, familiar weight. Not loud, not sharp, just enough. Eyes open without rush. Bodies rise without complaint. This is how the day begins, though the sky still says night. A medieval monk learns early that morning is not defined by light, but by sound. Feet touch cold floors. There is a brief pause beside each bed, a moment that feels less like waking and more like remembering where one is. The habit is pulled on in the same order every day. Hands move almost without thought. There is no mirror to check, no reason to. Everyone looks roughly the same, and that is part of the comfort. The sameness removes decisions. It quiets the mine. They move through corridors in silence, or something close to it. The sound of fabric, the soft echo of steps, a cough that is quickly swallowed. No one speaks because there is nothing that needs saying at this hour. Words will come later, or maybe they will not come much at all. That depends on the rule of the house and on the day. The church is darker than the corridors, lit only by a few small flames that barely push back the shadows. The monks take their places, each one knowing exactly where to stand, where to sit, where to bow. The order has been learned slowly, over months and years, until it no longer feels like memory, but like instinct. The prayers begin not as a performance, not as an effort, but as a continuation of breathing. Voices rise together, flat and unadorned. There is no attempt to impress. The sound is steady, even almost hypnotic. The words are familiar enough that the mind can wander slightly without getting lost. Some monks follow every syllable, others rest in the rhythm. Both are acceptable. The point is not attention in the sharp sense, but presence in the soft one. Time passes here in a way that feels different. Minutes stretch, not because they are long, but because nothing is chasing them. When the prayers end, there is no applause, no sense of completion. The monks simply shift, bow, and begin the next part of the day after the early prayers. There may be a short return to rest, or a quiet interval, depending on the season and the customs of the monastery. In winter, the cold encourages stillness. In summer, The light comes earlier, and the day adjusts. The routine bends slightly but never breaks. Flexibility exists, but only within familiar regions. Eventually, there is light, not sudden, not dramatic. It seeps in through small windows, catching on stone, touching the edges of wooden tables, finding dust in the air. The monastery wakes more fully now, though it never becomes loud. Breakfast is simple. Bread, perhaps coarse and dark. A small portion of something warm if the kitchen has already stirred. Eating is done quietly, often while someone reads aloud in a calm, even voice that blends with the sound of chewing and breathing. No one lingers. Food is not the center of the day. It is fuel, accepted with mild gratitude and no comment. When the meal ends, bowls are cleared, hands are wiped, and the monks move on without discussion. There are tasks to attend to, and though none of them are urgent, they are expected. Work fills much of the morning. The kind of work depends on the place. Some monks go to the fields, stepping into soil that has been turned by the same community for generations. Others move to workshops, where wood is shaped, leather softened, metal coaxed into usefulness. Some remain indoors, in scriptoria where light matters. Mistakes that would take more time to fix than they would ever save. The work is quiet, but not empty. There is a steady sense of purpose, though it is rarely spoken. Hands know what to do. Bodies learn the shape of effort without strain. There is a particular calm that comes from repeating the same motion day after day, year after year, until it no longer feels like labor and begins to feel like a form of rest. Occasionally, a bell sounds again. Not the same as the first one. This one is softer, almost polite. It marks another prayer, another pause. Tools are set down where they are. Pens are capped. The monks gather again, returning to the church or the chapel with the same unhurried steps. Prayer is not a break from work. It is part of the same movement, just shaped differently. As the morning continues, the light grows stronger. The monastery feels awake now, but never busy. Even when many things are happening at once, the pace remains slow, measured, almost stubbornly so. There is no reward for speed here, only for steadiness. And somewhere within this rhythm, barely noticed, because it is always there, the monk's day continues to unfold. One familiar moment following another, like footsteps along a path worn smooth by centuries of quiet use. The late morning settles in gently, without announcement. There is no sense of having crossed into a new phase of the day. The fields do not look dramatically different from one hour to the next. Rows remain rows. Hands keep moving. The sound of birds that never quite seem close enough to name. These pauses are brief and unremarkable, but they happen. No one corrects them. Inside, the copying of texts goes on with quiet persistence. Ink dries at its own pace. Pages are turned carefully, never rushed. A mistake, when it happens, is met with calm acceptance. It will be corrected if possible, or marked and left as it is. The monastery itself seems to breathe during these hours. Doors open and close softly. Footsteps pass and fade. Somewhere, water is drawn from a well or poured into a basin. The sound echoes gently, then disappears. Nothing competes for attention. Everything exists alongside everything else. As midday approaches, the bell returns, steady and familiar. It does not interrupt so much as remind. Tools are set aside again. The monks gather once more, their movements shaped by repetition rather than thought. Prayer at this hour feels slightly different. The body is awake now. The mind may drift more easily, not from sleepiness, but from comfort. The voices rise and fall together. There is a sameness to the sound that might seem dull to an outsider, but within it there is safety. No surprises, no sudden turns. The words have been spoken thousands of times before and will be spoken thousands of times again. They ask nothing new. After prayer comes the main meal of the day. It is still simple, still quiet, but there is a sense of fullness to it, not only because of the food, but because of the timing. The body receives it easily. Bread, vegetables, perhaps a bit of cheese or fish depending on the rule and the season. Meat appears rarely, if at all. When it does, it is not celebrated. The monks sit together, not facing one another for conversation, but arranged so that the room itself feels ordered. Someone reads aloud again. The voice is even, almost monotone, chosen not for beauty, but for steadiness. The words drift across the room and mingle with the small sounds of eating. Spoons against bowls, the soft tear of bread, a swallow, a breath. No one comments on the reading. Agreement or disagreement is irrelevant. The purpose is not discussion. It is presence. The voice fills the space so that thoughts do not wander too far. If they do, they wander gently, never sharply. When the meal ends, there is a pause. A brief moment where no one moves. Then chairs shift. Dishes are cleared. The room empties slowly. There is no rush to be elsewhere, because everything else will be there when they arrive. The early afternoon brings a change that is subtle but real. Energy dips slightly. The body, having eaten, turns inward for a while. The monastery allows for this. Some monks return to light work, others read quietly. Some rest, sitting or lying down, eyes half closed, not fully asleep, not fully awake. This is not laziness. It is part of the rhythm. Silence deepens during this time. Not the silence of rules, but the silence of shared understanding. Even the birds outside seem to quiet themselves, or perhaps they are simply less noticed. Time stretches again, not long, not short, but wide. Eventually, movement returns. The afternoon work begins, often mirroring the morning. Fields are visited again. Workshops reopen. The scriptorium fills with the soft scratch of pens. Muscles warm slowly, remembering what they were doing before they rested. There is no frustration in this remembering. It comes easily. The sun shifts in the sky, and with it, the quality of light changes. What was bright becomes slanted. What was hidden becomes visible. Dust in the air glows briefly, then fades. The monks do not mark this change with words. They feel it instead, in the length of shadows, in the temperature of stone beneath their hands. Another bell, another prayer. Each one fits into the day like a stone placed carefully into a wall. None stand out. All support the shape of what surrounds them. Prayer here is not an emotional peak. It is a steady line running through everything else. As the afternoon wears on, there is a sense of gentle winding down. Tasks are finished, not because a clock demands it, but because they have reached a natural stopping point. A row completed, a page filled, a tool cleaned and put away. The monastery prepares, quietly, for evening, though no one names it as such. The day does not end suddenly here. It loosens its grip slowly, allowing the monk to follow without effort, without needing to decide when. One thing becomes another. As evening approaches, it does not announce itself with color or drama. It simply arrives as a soft thinning of light, a gentle cooling of the air. The monastery feels this before it sees it. Stone releases the warmth it held through the day. Wooden doors sound slightly different when they close. Breathing slows. Again, almost on its own. The monks gather for the evening prayers with the same quiet certainty as before. By now, the body knows the pattern so well the thought is hardly involved. Knees bend, heads bow. Voices rise together once more, steady and unhurried. The sound fills the space without asking for attention. It has been here all day, returning again and again, like a familiar path walked so often it leaves no impression of effort. After prayer, there may be a small, simple meal. Lighter than the one at midday, soup perhaps, thin and warm. Bread again, always bread. The reading continues, calm and even. Words drift past like clouds seen through a window. They do not need to be held. They pass, and that is enough. Conversation, if it happens at all, is brief and practical. A quiet word about tomorrow's task, a small clarification. Nothing more. Silence soon returns, settling over the room like a blanket that fits exactly as it should. The final prayer of the day arrives gently. It feels different from the others. Not heavier, just softer. The day has been long, but not tiring. It has been full without being crowded. When the prayer ends, the monks bow and turn away. Not with a sense of completion, but with acceptance. Night deepens around the monastery. Candles are extinguished one by one. Corridors grow darker. Footsteps move toward familiar doors. Each monk returns to his small space, removing his habit in the same order he put it on. The bed waits, narrow and plain. Wool settles. Breathing finds its rhythm again. There is no review of the day, no measuring of success. What was done has been done. What was not done will wait. The bell is silent now, but it will return. It always does. That knowledge rests quietly in the mind, not as anticipation, but as reassurance. Outside, the land holds the monastery in darkness. Inside, the routine continues even in sleep. Muscles remember, minds drift. Time moves forward without being. Notice don't. And somewhere in that stillness, the shape of tomorrow is already forming. Identical in most ways, slightly different in others, waiting patiently to be lived, one unhurried moment at a time. Morning returns without effort, as it always does. It is not greeted with excitement or reluctance. It simply happens, the way breathing resumes after a pause. The bell sounds again, steady and familiar, and the monastery shifts gently from sleep into wakefulness. There is no sense of starting over. The day feels like a continuation of something already in motion. The monk rises from his bed with movements shaped by habit rather than intention. The floor is cool. The air is still. For a brief moment, there is a feeling of weightlessness, as if time has not yet fully returned. Then the habit is pulled on, hands moving in the same order they always do. The body remembers even when the mind is quiet. In the corridor, others move in the same way. No one needs to look up. No one needs to acknowledge anyone else. Presence is shared without interaction. This is not loneliness. It is a kind of togetherness that does not require proof. The church receives them again, unchanged. Stone holds the night's cold. Candles flicker softly, offering just enough light to soften the darkness without removing it. The monks take their places. Prayer begins, flowing evenly, without emphasis. The words do not rise or fall dramatically. They move forward at a pace that matches breathing. There are moments when attention drifts. A monk may find himself listening more to the sound than the meaning, or thinking briefly of nothing at all. This is not corrected. The rhythm carries him along regardless. When the prayer ends, there is no clear line between before and after. The day simply opens a little wider. Afterward, the monastery remains quiet. Morning has not fully arrived yet. Depending on the season, there may be a short return to rest, or a stillness that feels like rest, even while standing. In winter, the dark lingers longer, encouraging patience. In summer, light presses against the windows earlier, changing the shape of the hours. When work begins, it does so gently. Doors open, tools are taken up. The first movements of labor are slow, allowing muscles to wake fully. In the fields, the earth feels cool beneath the hands. In workshops, wood and leather offer familiar resistance. Indoors, pages are arranged carefully, ink prepared without haste. The work does not ask for enthusiasm. It only asks for presence. A monk copying text traces letters he has seen since his earliest days here. The shapes are known so well they feel almost separate from language. The hand moves. The eye follows. The mind rests lightly on the task without gripping it too tightly. Outside, the world beyond the monastery continues, though it feels distant. There may be travelers on a road somewhere, merchants beginning their day, animals stirring in barns. These things exist, but they do not intrude. The monastery holds its own pace, sheltered not by walls alone, but by repetition. As the morning unfolds, light slowly fills the spaces between stones. Dust becomes visible, floating lazily in the air. The smell of damp earth fades slightly, replaced by warmer scents. A monk working near a window notices this without thinking about it. The body registers the change, and that is enough. The bell sounds again, calling the monks back to prayer. Tools are set down where they are. There is no frustration at stopping. Mid-task, the task will be there later. It always is. Prayer does not interrupt work. It simply reshapes the hour. The voices rise together once more, even and calm. The sound is neither beautiful nor plain. It is simply consistent. The effect is not emotional in any sharp sense. Instead, it smooths the edges of thought, rounding them until nothing catches. After prayer comes a small meal. Bread, perhaps still. Warm, water or weak ale. Eating is done without comment. The reading begins again, the voice steady and unadorned. Words move through the room without urgency. No one listens closely enough to argue with them. No one ignores them entirely either. When the meal ends, the monks return to their work, carrying with them a quiet fullness. The body feels supported. The mind remains unhurried. There is no sense of pushing the day forward. It unfolds on its own. Mid-morning work has a particular quality. Energy is present, but not restless. Hands move with confidence. Tasks progress. Steadily, a row in the field lengthens. A carving takes shape. A page fills with careful lines. Progress is visible, but it is not measured. Occasionally, a monk pauses, perhaps to stretch a hand, perhaps to look out at the sky. These pauses do not feel like breaks. They are simply part of the movement, like spaces between breaths. The monastery holds all of this quietly. Walls listen without responding. Floors carry footsteps without complaint. Time moves forward without marking itself. And within this steady flow, the monk continues his day, not striving toward an end, but resting within a pattern that asks nothing more than that he remain where he is, doing what is already before him. As the day moves quietly onward, the approach of midday is felt more than noticed. The body senses it first, a slight heaviness in the limbs, a gentler pull towards stillness. The sun stands higher now, even if it cannot be seen directly from within the walls. Light finds its way into places it did not reach earlier, resting briefly on stone ledges, sliding across worn tabletops, touching the edges of pages. Work continues, but with a softened pace. Not slower, exactly, just less insistent. The fields lie open beneath the sky, their colors muted and steady. A monk bends and straightens in an easy rhythm, one that does not demand counting. The soil accepts each movement without comment. It has seen all of this before. Inside the monastery, the air grows warmer. Windows are opened a little wider. Sounds from outside drift in faintly. A bird call, wind passing through leaves. These sounds do not distract. They settle alongside the work, becoming part of the same quiet texture. In the scriptorium, ink darkens on parchment. Letters take shape, one after another, their forms unchanged by the centuries that have already passed them by. The monk writing does not think of centuries. He thinks of the line before him, and then the next one. His posture adjusts slightly. His hand rests, then it moves again. There is no competition here. No one measures how much another has done. The work belongs to the day, not to the individual. What is finished is finished. What remains will remain until tomorrow or the day after. This is understood without being spoken. When the bell sounds for midday prayer, it feels expected, almost welcome. The sound carries across fields and corridors alike, steady and familiar. Tools are set down, hands are wiped on cloth, doors open and close gently. The monks gather once more, their movement shaped by memory rather than decision. Prayer at this hour has a grounded quality. The body is awake. Hunger is beginning, but it does not intrude sharply. The voices rise and fall together, unadorned even. There is a sense of being held in place, not by force, but by familiarity. After prayer comes the main meal. The room where it is taken feels fuller now, not crowded, but complete. Bowls are set out. Bread is broken. Steam rises faintly from whatever warm dish has been prepared. The reading begins again, the voice calm and unchanging, its tone chosen for steadiness rather than interest. Eating is unhurried. Each movement is simple. Spoon lifted, bread torn, mouth closed, swallow. There is no effort to finish quickly. There is no lingering either. The meal occupies the space it needs, and no more. For some monks, this is the only time in the day when the body feels truly satisfied. It is not indulgence, it is balance. The food settles slowly, warming from within. When the meal ends, there is a brief stillness, as if the room itself is pausing to acknowledge what has just occurred. Then chairs shift softly, bowls are cleared. The monks rise and move on, leaving the room quiet again. Nothing remains of the meal except a faint warmth and the echo of the reading voice, already fading. The early afternoon arrives with a noticeable change. The energy of the morning recedes slightly. The body turns inward. The monastery responds by allowing the day to soften. Some monks return to light work. Others sit quietly with a book, eyes moving slowly across familiar lines. Some rest, leaning back or lying down briefly, not fully asleep, but not fully alert. This rest is not seen as interruption. It is part of the rhythm, as expected as prayer or work. The silence during this time deepens. Footsteps are fewer. Doors remain closed. Even voices seem to withdraw, as if they too are resting. Time feels wider here, not stretched thin, but open. Moments pass without being counted. The monk resting does not wonder how long he has been there. He does not need to know. The bell will return when it is time. When movement begins again, it does so gradually. A monk sits up. Another stands. A book is closed carefully. Work resumes, but without urgency. The body has been allowed to settle, and now it rises again with ease. The afternoon work often mirrors the morning. Fields are tended again. Tools are taken up. Pages are turned, but the light has changed. Shadows lengthen. The air feels different against the skin. These changes are not commented on. They are simply felt. Another prayer arrives, marked by the bell. Again, tools are set down without reluctance. Again, the monks gather. The pattern holds steady. The voices blend together once more, smoothing the edges of the day as the afternoon continues. There is a sense of gradual unwinding. Tasks reach natural stopping points. A final line is completed. A tool is cleaned and returned to its place. Nothing is forced to continue beyond what feels right. The monastery does not signal that the day is moving toward evening. It does not need to. The monks feel it in their bodies, in the way movement becomes a little slower, a little more deliberate. The day is not ending yet, but it is beginning to loosen, preparing quietly for what comes next. The light continues its slow shift, almost unnoticeable unless one has lived within these walls long enough to sense it without looking. Afternoon deepens, not by growing darker, but by growing softer. The sharpness of earlier hours fades. The monastery seems to exhale, settling more fully into itself. Work carries on, but now it feels closer to completion. Not finished, exactly, but rounded. A monk in the fields straightens and looks across the rows he has tended. There is no calculation of how much was done. The view itself is enough. Another monk inside closes a book carefully, not because he has reached the end, but because the moment feels right to stop. There is a quiet respect for these moments. Stopping is not failure here. It is attentiveness. Knowing when to pause is as important as knowing how to begin. Tools are cleaned slowly. Hands are washed. Cloth dries against skin. These small acts are given their time, unhurried, almost ceremonial in their simplicity. The bell returns again, steady as always. It does not grow louder as the day progresses. It does not try to compete with fatigue or fading light. It sounds exactly as it did in the morning, and yesterday, and long before that. The monks respond, without thought, turning toward prayer as naturally as turning toward warmth on a cool day. The prayers of late afternoon have a quieter tone, not in volume, but in feeling. The voices remain even, but there is a sense of gentleness beneath them, as if the day itself is listening. The body is tired now, though not exhausted. The mind feels open, slightly unfocused, willing to rest in repetition. When prayer ends, there is no immediate return to work. The remaining tasks of the day are few. Some monks walk slowly through the cloister, hands folded, steps measured. Others sit quietly, watching light move across stone. There is nothing to achieve in these moments. They exist for their own sake. As evening approaches more clearly now, the monastery begins to prepare, though the preparation is subtle. Lamps are checked. Doors are closed against the cooling air. The kitchen stirs briefly, producing a simple, light meal. The smells drift through corridors, faint and familiar. The evening meal is taken quietly, as all meals are. It is smaller, lighter, not meant to fill so much as to settle. The reading continues, the same calm voice, the same steady pace. Words pass by without demanding attention. They are there to accompany, not to instruct. Afterward, silence deepens again. The final prayer of the day approaches, and with it, a sense of gentle closure. Not an ending, but a folding inward. The monks gather one last time, movements slower now, more deliberate. The day has left its mark, not as strain, but as softness. The final prayer is brief. The voices are calm, nearly blending into the quiet itself. When it ends, there is no pause for reflection. The reflection has been happening all day, woven into every repeated action, every familiar sound. Candles are extinguished. The corridors darken. Footsteps move toward rest. Each monk returns to his small, familiar space, removing his habit, folding it carefully. The bed waits, unchanged, patient. The body settles into it without resistance. There is no replaying of the day, no counting of hours. What happened today happened in the same way it always does, and that is enough. Outside, night fully claims the land. Inside, breathing slows, deepens, steadies. Sleep arrives gently, not as an escape, but as another part of the routine. The bell is silent now, but it is not forgotten. It rests, as the monks rest, ready to return when the hour comes. And in this quiet, the day releases its hold completely, leaving behind only a familiar stillness, waiting calmly for morning to begin again. Morning comes again, not as a return, but as a continuation. The bell sounds in the same measured way it always has, neither louder nor softer than before. Its tone does not carry emotion. It carries certainty. Within the monastery, bodies respond. Before thoughts have time to form, eyes open, hands move. The day resumes its familiar shape. The monk rises slowly, feeling the quiet stiffness that comes from sleep on a narrow bed. It fades as he stands. The floor is cool, grounding. He dresses without looking, fabric settling over his shoulders like something that belongs there. The habit does not express individuality. It removes it gently, allowing the day to unfold without distraction. In the corridor, the air holds holds a faint memory of night. Others pass silently, each moving toward the same place, though no one signals the direction. The walls guide them. They always have. The church waits, unchanged, holding the dark with patience. Prayer begins again, steady and unremarkable. Voices move together, not seeking harmony, only alignment. The words are old, worn smooth by repetition. They ask nothing unexpected. They do not surprise the mind. They create a space where thought can soften without disappearing. There are moments when the monk notices the sound of his own breathing beneath the prayer. It blends in easily. He does not try to adjust it. Everything here has already found its pace. When prayer ends, the monks do not linger. They move on quietly, as if the next part of the day has already been waiting. Morning has not yet fully revealed itself. The light outside is thin, grey, patient. Work begins gently. Doors open. Tools are gathered. The first tasks of the day are chosen not by preference, but by necessity. A monk assigned to the fields steps outside, the earth cooled beneath his feet. Another moves toward the workshop, touching familiar surfaces as he passes. Indoors, a monk prepares parchment, smoothing it carefully, aware of its texture. These actions are not rushed. They are not slow either. They exist in a middle space where effort does not feel heavy. The body warms gradually, adjusting to movement without strain. The morning hours carry a particular stillness. The world beyond the monastery feels distant, almost unreal. Here, the soundscape is limited. A tool striking wood, a footstep on stone, the low murmur of wind. Each sound appears briefly, then fades. As light increases, the monastery becomes more visible. Stone walls show their uneven surfaces. Wooden beams reveal old marks, traces of hands long gone. The monk notices these details without dwelling on them. They are familiar companions, seen every day, yet never fully exhausted. The bell returns, calling the monks back to prayer. The sound does not interrupt. It simply redirects. Hands release tools. Pens are set aside. The transition is smooth. Practiced. There is no regret in stopping. Nothing is lost. Prayer at this hour feels grounded. The body is awake now. The mind is steady. Voices rise and fall evenly, creating a gentle enclosure of sound. The monk stands or sits as required, posture learned through repetition rather than instruction. When prayer ends, a small meal follows. Bread, plain and dependable. A drink that refreshes without drawing attention to itself. The reading begins again, the voice calm, almost neutral. Words move through the room like a current beneath still water. The monk listens without effort. He does not try to hold the meaning tightly. If it slips away, it slips. The sound remains. That is enough. After the meal, work resumes. The morning stretches ahead, open but not empty. Tasks unfold naturally. In the fields, soil yields slowly to the hand. In the workshop, materials respond in familiar ways. Indoors, lines of text accumulate one after another, forming something larger without announcing themselves. There is no sense of progress measured against time. The monk does not count hours. He feels them instead, passing through his body as changes in light, warmth, and energy. This way of knowing time is quieter, less exact, but sufficient. Occasionally, the monk pauses, perhaps to rest his hand, perhaps to look up. These pauses do not disrupt the flow. They are part of it, like spaces between notes that make sound possible. The monastery holds all of this with calm indifference. It does not praise effort. It does not criticize stillness. It simply provides the structure within which the day moves. As the morning continues, the rhythm settles deeper. Repetition no longer feels like repetition. It feels like presence. The monk is not thinking about the day as a whole. He is within it, moving from one small action to the next, each complete in itself. Outside, the sun climbs higher. Inside, the light shifts slowly across stone and wood. The bell will sound again when the time comes. Until then, the monk remains where he is, doing what is in front of him, neither anticipating the next moment nor wishing the current one away. As the morning moves forward, it does so without any clear boundary. There is no moment that announces the approach of midday. The monk feels it instead as a slight change in the way his body holds itself. The air seems thicker, warmer. Movements become a little more deliberate, not from tiredness, but from familiarity. Settling in more deeply, work continues in its quiet way. In the fields, the sun now rests more fully on the earth. The soil gives off a faint warmth. A monk straightens his back slowly, stretching without thinking of it as stretching. He looks out over what he has been tending, not to assess, but simply because his eyes have lifted there. After a moment, he bends again and continues. Inside the monastery, the light reaches further into corridors and rooms. Corners that were dim earlier now show their shape more clearly. Dust drifts lazily, visible for a moment, then gone. A monk copying text pauses briefly to let his eyes rest, gazing at the window without focusing on what lies beyond it. When he returns to the page, his hand finds its place without effort. The sounds of work remain sparse and gentle. Nothing overlaps too much. Each sound exists alone, then disappears. A tool set down, a page turned, a footstep that echoes once and then fades. The silence between these sounds is not empty. It feels full, as if it is holding everything together. As the bell sounds for midday prayer, the monk is not startled. The sound arrives exactly when expected, even if he was not thinking about it. It moves through the space evenly, touching fields and stone walls alike. Work pauses without resistance. Hands release what they are holding, but is turned toward the familiar path. The church receives them again, its interior now touched by more light than it held earlier. Shadows remain, but they are softer. Prayer begins, steady and even. The monk's voice blends easily with the others. He does not listen for his own sound. He lets it disappear into the whole. At this hour, prayer has a weight that feels settled. Hunger is present now, but it is calm, patient. The body recognizes the approach of nourishment without urgency. The words continue, measured and familiar, allowing thought to drift without drifting away completely. When prayer ends, the monks move toward the meal with the same quiet order that shapes everything else. The room is prepared simply. Bowls are placed. Bread is set out. Steam rises faintly from the food. visible for a moment before it thins into the air. The reading begins, the voice calm and unchanging. It does not compete with the meal. It accompanies it, filling the space so that silence does not become empty. The monk eats slowly. He does not count bites. He does not hurry. The food warms him gently, settling into the body without demand. Around him, others do the same. There is no eye contact, no conversation. The shared act of eating is enough. It connects without requiring acknowledgement. When the meal is finished, there is a brief pause, a shared stillness that lasts only a few breaths. Then movement returns. Bowls are cleared. Chairs shift softly. The monks rise and leave the room as quietly as they entered. The warmth of the meal lingers for a while. Even after the room is empty, the early afternoon arrives with a noticeable softness. The body, having worked and eaten, turns inward. The monastery allows for this shift. Some monks return to light tasks, choosing work that does not demand strength or precision. Others sit with a book, reading slowly, letting the words move at their own pace. Some rest, not fully asleep, but not fully awake either. A monk may sit with his back against a wall, eyes closed, breathing deep and even. Time stretches here, not because it is long, but because nothing is pushing against it. The silence deepens during these hours. Sounds become rarer, softer. Even footsteps seem to hesitate, as if aware of the quiet they are entering. The monastery feels suspended, held gently between morning and afternoon. When the bell sounds again, marking the end of this interval, it does so without urgency. The monk responds slowly, opening his eyes if they were closed, rising if he was seated. The body feels rested, not energized, but balanced. Work resumes, gradually. The fields receive hands again. The workshop doors open. Pages are turned. The movements are familiar, but they carry a slightly different quality now. The light has changed. The shadows are longer. The air feels different against the skin. The monk notices these changes without naming them. They register as sensations, rather than thoughts. The day is moving forward, but it is not leaving anything behind. Everything remains connected, each hour flowing into the next without sharp edges. Another prayer arrives in time, as it always does. The bell sounds, steady and calm. Once again, tools are set down. Once again, the monks gather. The pattern holds, unbroken, comforting in its predictability. As the voices rise together, there is a sense of the day beginning to round itself, not ending yet, but easing. The monk stands within this sound, feeling its steadiness, allowing it to smooth whatever roughness the day may have introduced. When the prayer ends, the afternoon continues, unhurried. Tasks are completed where they naturally come to rest. A tool is cleaned and put away. A page is finished and set aside. Nothing is forced to continue beyond its moment. The monastery does not signal what comes next. It does not need to. The monk feels the gradual turning of the day within his body, a gentle unwinding that prepares him, without instruction, for the quiet hours that will follow. The afternoon settles more deeply now, moving toward evening without drawing attention to itself. Light stretches across the stone floors at a lower angle, touching places it did not reach earlier, then slipping away again. The monastery responds quietly, as it always does, by allowing the day to slow. Work tapers naturally, not because it must stop, but because it has reached a comfortable fullness. A monk in the fields finishes the row he has been working on and stands still for a moment, feeling the ground beneath his feet. He does not look for another task right away. He lets the pause exist. Inside, a monk closes a book carefully, fingertips lingering on the cover as if acknowledging the time spent. With it, the bell sounds again, calling the community to prayer. By now, the sound feels woven into the day itself. It arrives without surprise, without insistence. The monks gather, their movements slightly slower than in the morning, softened by the hours already past. Prayer at this time feels quieter. In the body, muscles release more easily. Breathing deepens. The voices rise together once more, even and unadorned. The sound does not lift or fall dramatically. It remains level, steady, like a surface that supports without moving. Thoughts drift gently, not away, but around the sound, never pulling too far from it. When prayer ends, there is little work left to do. The monastery begins to prepare for evening in small, practical ways. Lamps are checked. Doors are closed more firmly against the cooling air. The kitchen stirs briefly, producing a light meal meant to settle rather than satisfy fully. There, monks eat quietly, as they have all day. The reading continues, the same calm voice, the same measured pace. Words pass through the space without demanding attention. The body receives the food easily, without hunger or fullness drawing focus. After the meal, silence grows deeper. The final prayer approaches, and with it, a sense of gentle closure. Not an ending, but a folding inward. The monks gather one last time, movements careful, familiar. The day has shaped them slightly, not through strain, but through repetition. The final prayer is brief. The voices are calm, almost blending into the quiet itself. When it ends, there is no lingering. Candles are extinguished. The corridors darken. Footsteps move toward rest. Each monk returns to his small space, removing his habit, folding it carefully. The bed waits, unchanged, patient. The body settles into it without resistance. Breathing slows. Thoughts loosen their hold. There is no review of the day, no marking of progress. What has passed in the way it always does, quietly, completely. Outside, night claims the land. Inside, sleep arrives gently, another familiar movement in the long, unbroken rhythm that will begin again when the bell sounds once more. The next morning arrives without any sense of novelty. It does not feel new. It feels expected, as if it has been waiting patiently for the night to finish. The bell sounds in the same tone it always has, neither softened by darkness nor sharpened by dawn. Its sound moves through the monastery with quiet authority, not commanding, just reminding. The monk wakes slowly, not pulled from sleep, but guided out of it. His eyes open. The ceiling above him is familiar in the dim light. For a moment, there is no thought at all, only the feeling of being present again. Then the body moves, following a pattern learned long ago. He sits up. His feet find the floor. The coolness rises through the soles and into his legs, grounding him fully in the day that has already begun. The habit is lifted and settled into place. the fabric falling with a weight that feels reassuring rather than heavy. There is no need to check the fit. It is fit every day before the swan. In the corridor, the quiet is shared. Other monks pass, close enough to sense, but without exchange. Their presence is steady, predictable. No one hurries. No one lingers. The path is known, and the body follows it without guidance. The church receives them again, dark and still. The candles offer a low, patient light. Stone absorbs sound, making the space feel deeper than it is. Prayer begins, flowing evenly, without emphasis. The words are familiar enough that they no longer feel separate from the breath that carries them. At this hour, the mind is still close to sleep. Thoughts come and go slowly, if they come at all. The monk does not resist this. The prayer does not demand sharp attention. It holds the space gently, allowing awareness to rest wherever it chooses. When the prayer ends, there is no sense of completion. The monks simply move on, returning to the quiet flow of the morning. Outside, the sky has begun to shift, but only slightly. Light presses faintly against the windows, still unsure of itself. Work begins again, just as it did yesterday, and the day before that. The same tasks return. The same tools are lifted. There is comfort in this repetition. It removes the need to decide what the day will be. The day already knows. A monk steps into the fields, the earth cool and slightly damp beneath his hands. Another enters the workshop, breathing in the familiar scent of wood and oil. Indoors, parchment is laid out carefully, its surface smoothed, prepared to receive ink. Each action feels necessary, but not urgent. The morning hours unfold quietly. The body warms to its movements. Muscles remember their work. The rhythm settles in. Sound remains sparse. A tool strikes. A page turns. Wind brushes against stone. Between these sounds, silence rests comfortably. Light grows stronger now, filling spaces that were shadowed earlier. It does not rush in. It spreads slowly, touching surfaces without changing them. The monk notices this without comment. His attention remains on what is directly before him. The bell sounds again, marking the next prayer. The sound is steady, unchanged. Work pauses naturally. Hands release tools. The transition feels smooth, almost effortless. The monks gather once more, the pattern holding firm. Prayer at this hour feels more grounded. The body is awake now. The mind is steadier. Voices blend together evenly, creating a sound that feels less like speech and more like atmosphere. The monk does not separate his voice from the others. He lets it disappear into the whole. After prayer, a simple meal is taken. Bread, plain and familiar. A drink that refreshes without drawing attention. The reading begins again, the voice calm, consistent. Words pass through the room without urgency. They are present, but they do not insist on being held. The monk eats. Slowly, without counting. The food settles gently, providing support rather than pleasure. When the meal ends, there is no conversation. The monks rise and return to their work as quietly as they arrived. Mid-morning work carries a particular steadiness. Energy is present, but not restless. Hands move with confidence. Tasks progress naturally. In the fields, rows extend. In the workshop, shapes take form. On the page, lines accumulate, one after another. There is no sense of racing the day. The monk does not think ahead to midday or evening. He remains within the moment he is in, allowing it to be complete. Pauses occur naturally. A stretch of the hand, a brief lifting of the eyes. These moments do not interrupt the flow. They are part of it. The monastery holds all of this without judgment. It does not reward speed. It does not punish stillness. It simply offers a structure in which the day can unfold, steady and reliable. As the morning continues, the rhythm deepens further. The repetition no longer feels repetitive. It feels stabilizing. The monk moves from one small action to the next, each one familiar, each one sufficient. The bell will sound again when it is time. Until then, the day remains open, quiet, and unhurried. The approach of midday is felt again in small, physical ways. The air grows warmer. The stone beneath the monk's hands no longer holds the chill of morning. Movements remain steady, but they soften slightly, as if the body is settling more fully into the day rather than pushing through it. Work continues without interruption. In the fields, the sun rests higher now, though it never feels harsh here. Its warmth spreads evenly, touching skin and earth alike. A monk pauses to straighten his back, not because he is weary, but because the moment invites it. His eyes lift briefly, resting on the quiet line of the horizon. Nothing there demands attention. After a moment, he returns to his task. Inside the monastery, light reaches deeper into corridors and rooms. Corners that held shadow earlier now show their shape more clearly. Dust floats lazily in the air, catching the light for a breath, then disappearing again. A monk in the scriptorium blinks slowly, letting his eyes rest before continuing the careful movement of ink across parchment. The sounds of work remain gentle and spaced apart. No two sounds seem to compete. A footstep echoes once, then fades. A tool is set down softly. Silence closes around each sound, holding it briefly before letting it go. When the bell sounds for midday prayer, it feels neither early nor late. It arrives exactly when expected, even if no one was waiting for it consciously. Hands release tools. Pages are marked. Bodies turn toward the familiar gathering place without hesitation. The church now holds more light than it did earlier. Shadows remain, but they are softer, less defined. Prayer begins, voices steady and unadorned. The monk feels the weight of standing or sitting in place, grounded and present. Hunger stirs gently, but it does not distract. The words move forward at their usual pace, creating a calm enclosure of sound. The monk's thoughts drift lightly, never straying far. The rhythm holds him in place, requiring nothing beyond participation. When prayer ends, the monks move toward the midday meal with quiet order. The room is prepared simply. Bowls are set out. Bread is placed within easy reach. Steam rises faintly from the food, visible for a moment before it thins into the air. The reading begins again, the voice calm and even. It does not change its tone for emphasis. It does not pause for reaction. It simply continues, steady as breathing. The monk eats slowly, not thinking about taste or quantity. The food warms him, settles him, supports the work that has already been done and the work that will follow. Around him, others do the same. No one looks up. No one speaks. The shared silence feels complete, not empty. When the meal ends, There is a brief stillness, a collective pause that lasts only a few breaths. Then chairs shift softly, bowls are cleared. The monks rise and leave the room as quietly as they entered. The warmth of the meal lingers, both in the body and faintly in the room itself. The early afternoon brings a noticeable change. Energy turns inward. The monastery allows this, without question. Some monks return to light work, choosing tasks that require less effort. Others sit with a book, reading slowly, letting the words pass without urgency. Some rest, not deeply, not fully asleep, but resting in a way that allows the body to settle. A monk leans against a wall, eyes closed, breathing even and unforced. Time feels wide here. It is not measured. It simply exists. Silence deepens during these hours. Sounds grow rarer, softer. Even footsteps seem cautious, as if aware of the quiet they are entering. The monastery feels suspended, held gently between the active hours of the day. When the bell sounds again, marking the end of this interval, it does so calmly. The monk opens his eyes, if they were closed. He reaches, if he was seated. The body feels balanced, neither eager nor reluctant. Work resumes gradually. Tools are lifted again. Pages are turned. The fields receive hands once more. The light has changed. Now, shadows stretch longer. The air feels different against the skin, cooler, more textured. The monk notices these changes without naming them. They register as sensations rather than thoughts. The day continues to move forward, but it does not leave anything behind. Each hour flows into the next, smooth and unbroken. Another prayer arrives in its time. The bell sounds, steady and familiar. Once again, work pauses. Once again, the monks gather. The pattern holds firm, offering the same quiet reassurance it always has dots as the voices rise together. There is a sense of the day beginning to round itself, easing toward its later hours. The monk stands within this sound, allowing it to smooth the edges of effort and time. When the prayer ends, the afternoon continues without urgency. Tasks reach natural stopping points. A tool is cleaned and set aside. A page is finished and placed carefully atop another. The monastery does not announce what comes next. It does not need to. The monk feels the gentle unwinding of the day within his body, a slow turning that prepares him, without instruction, for the quiet approach of evening. The afternoon leans further toward evening, doing so with a softness that feels almost intentional. Light no longer spreads across the stone floors. Instead, it gathers in long, narrow shapes, lingering for a while before moving on. The monastery seems to notice this and respond by slowing even more. Work begins to fall away, not all at once, but gently, task by task. A monk in the fields finishes what is directly in front of him and does not begin something new. He stands quietly for a moment, hands resting at his sides, feeling the days settle into his body. Inside, another monk places a finished page atop, a neat stack, and smooths it once with his palm, then lets his hand rest there briefly before moving away. These moments are unmarked, but they matter. They signal a readiness to let go of effort, to allow the day to move toward rest without resistance. Tools are cleaned slowly, cloth is folded, doors are closed with care rather than necessity. The bell sounds again, calling the monks to prayer. At this hour, its tone feels especially familiar, almost comforting. The sound does not travel far before it is absorbed by stone and air, but it reaches everyone it needs to. The monks gather, their steps measured, their posture relaxed. Prayer in the late afternoon carries a quiet depth. The body is tired now, but not strained. Muscles loosen more easily. Breathing deepens without effort. The voices remain steady, blending together in a way that feels less like speaking and more like being present together. When the prayer ends, there is little left to do. The monastery begins its quiet preparation for night. Lamps are adjusted, shutters are checked. The kitchen stirs briefly, producing a light meal meant only to settle the body gently. The monks eat in silence, as they have all day. The reading continues, calm and even, its rhythm unchanged by the hour. The food is simple and modest. It satisfies, without drawing attention to itself. When the meal ends, there is no lingering. Bowls are cleared. The room empties quietly. Silence deepens now, settling into the spaces between walls and corridors. The final prayer of the day approaches, and with it, a sense of the day folding inward. The monks gather one last time, movements slow and practiced. No one rushes. No one delays. The final prayer is brief and calm. The voices are soft, nearly merging with the quiet around them. When it ends, candles are extinguished one by one. Darkness returns gently, without surprise. Footsteps move toward rest. Each monk returns to his small, familiar space. The habit is removed and folded carefully. The bed waits, unchanged, patient. The body settles into Vasili, as if it has been expecting this moment all day. There is no reflection on what was done, no anticipation of what will come. The day releases its hold without effort. Outside, night fully claims the land. Inside, breathing slows and deepens, and sleep arrives as another familiar rhythm, steady and unremarkable, ready to carry the monk forward until the bell sounds again. The bell returns again, as it always does, sounding into the quiet before dawn. Its tone has not changed. It never seems to. It reaches through stone and shadow with the same calm certainty, and the monastery responds without hesitation. Sleep loosens its hold, eyes open. The day begins, not with intention, but with acceptance. The monk wakes slowly, resting for a moment in the space between sleeping and rising. There is no reason to hurry. The bell has already done its work. He sits up, feeling the familiar firmness of the bed beneath him. The air is cool. It feels clean in the lungs. He stands, feet touching the floor, letting the coolness move upward and settle him fully into the morning. The habit is lifted and placed over his shoulders. The fabric falls into its usual shape, unchanged by the night. There is comfort in this. Sameness. It removes choice. It quiets the small, restless parts of the mind that might otherwise ask unnecessary questions. The corridor holds a gentle darkness. Other monks move through it, each in his own quiet awareness, yet connected by the shared rhythm. No one speaks. No one needs to. The sound of footsteps is soft, absorbed quickly by stone. The church receives them once more, its interior still and waiting. Candles offer a small, patient light, enough to soften the darkness without dissolving it. Prayer begins, voices rising together in an even, unhurried flow. The words are deeply familiar now, worn smooth by years of repetition. They do not demand thought. They allow it to rest. At this hour, the mind is still gentle with itself. Thoughts drift slowly, if they appear at all. The monk notices the sound of breath moving in and out, steady and calm, blending easily with the rhythm of prayer. Time feels suspended, not stopped, just unimportant. When the prayer ends, there is no clear transition. The monks move on as naturally as water following a slight slope. Morning has not fully arrived yet. Outside, the sky holds a pale hint of light, unsure of itself. Work begins quietly. Doors open. Tools are gathered. The monk steps into the task given to him, whether it is tending the fields, preparing materials, or copying text. There is no preference involved. The task is accepted as it is, part of the shape of the day. In the fields, the earth feels cool and slightly damp beneath the hands. The body warms gradually with movement. Each motion is familiar. There is no need to think ahead. The next action is always clear. Indoors, parchment is prepared carefully, its surface smoothed with patience. Ink is mixed slowly, its dark color deepening as it settles. The morning hours unfold with quiet consistency. Light grows stronger, finding its way through small windows, catching on uneven stone. The monastery reveals itself piece by piece, the same way it does every day. Nothing looks new, yet nothing feels worn out. The bell sounds again, calling the monks back to prayer. Work pauses easily. Tools are set down. Hands are wiped. Bodies turn toward the familiar gathering place without effort. The transition feels seamless, as if prayer and work are simply two expressions of the same movement. Prayer at this hour feels grounded. The body is awake now. The mind is steady. Voices blend together, creating a sound that fills the space without drawing attention to itself. The monk stands within it, supported by the sameness of it all. After prayer, a simple meal is taken. Bread, plain and reliable. A drink that refreshes without insisting on being noticed. The reading begins again, the voice calm and even, chosen for its steadiness rather than expression. Words move through the room like a gentle current. The monk eats slowly, without thought of taste or quantity. The food does its work quietly, warming and sustaining. When the meal ends, there is no conversation. Chairs shift softly. The monks rise and return to their tasks. Mid-morning carries a steady energy, not excitement, not urgency, just the ability to continue. Hands move with confidence. Tasks progress naturally. In the fields, rows lengthen. In the workshop, shapes take form. On the page, lines of text accumulate, one after another. Without announcement, there is no sense of time being spent or saved. The monk does not count hours. He feels them instead as subtle changes in light and warmth. The day moves forward, but it does not press. Occasional pauses appear, unplanned and unremarked. A hand rests for a moment. Eyes lift briefly. These pauses are not breaks. They are part of the rhythm, as necessary as movement itself. The monastery holds everything in place, quietly supporting the flow of the day. It asks nothing beyond presence. It offers nothing beyond structure. Within this balance, the monk continues, steady and unhurried, allowing the morning to unfold exactly as it always has, and exactly as it needs to dot the approach of midday makes. Itself known again, not through sound or signal, but through a gentle shift in the body. The monk feels it as a soft weight settling into his movements. Not heaviness, just a sense of having already been awake for a while. The air has warmed. Stone no longer feels cool to the touch. The day has found its center. Work continues without interruption. In the fields, the sun rests higher, spreading its warmth evenly across the earth. The monk bends and straightens in a slow, familiar rhythm. There is no need to hurry. There is also no temptation to stop. The work holds him gently, giving the body something simple and steady to do. Inside the monastery, light reaches deeper into corridors and rooms. The edges of shadows soften. Dust floats lazily in the air, visible only when the light catches it just right. A monk copying text pauses. For a moment, not because his hand is tired, but because his eyes ask for rest. He looks at the page without reading it, then continues. The sounds of work remain sparse and separate. A tool is set down. A page is turned. A footstep echoes once and fades. Between these sounds, silence stretches comfortably, never feeling empty, never feeling strained. When the bell sounds for midday prayer, it arrives as expected, neither early nor late. Hands release tools, pages are marked carefully. The monks turn toward the church without thought or discussion. The path is well worn, not just in stone, but in memory. The church holds more light now than it did in the early hours. Stillness fills the space. Prayer begins, voices steady and unadorned. The monk feels the weight of standing or sitting, solid and grounded. Hunger stirs gently, but it does not distract. It waits. The words move forward at their usual pace. The monk's attention drifts lightly, resting more on the sound than on meaning. The rhythm holds everything in place, smoothing the edges of thought. When prayer ends, the monks move toward the midday meal. The room is prepared simply. Bowls are set out. Bread is placed within reach. Steam rises faintly from the food, visible for a moment before thinning into the air. The reading begins again, the voice calm and even, unchanged by the hour. It does not pause for emphasis. It does not invite reaction. It simply continues, steady as breathing. The monk eats slowly. Each movement is simple and familiar. The food warms him, settles into the body without demand. Around him the others eat in the same way. No one looks up. No one speaks. The shared silence feels complete, filled by the presence of others, rather than emptied by the absence of words. When the meal ends, there is a brief pause, a moment where no one moves, as if the room itself is resting. Then chairs shift softly, bowls are cleared. The monks rise and leave, returning the room to quiet. The early afternoon arrives with a noticeable softening. The body turns inward. Energy dips gently, not as fatigue, but as balance. The monastery allows this shift without comment. Some monks return to light tasks, choosing work that does not require strength or precision. Others sit with a book, reading, slowly, letting the words pass without urgency. Some rest, not deeply, not fully asleep, but resting in a way that allows the body to settle. A monk sits with his back against a wall, eyes closed, breathing even and unforced. Time feels wide here. It is not measured. It simply exists. Silence deepens. During these hours, sounds grow rarer. Even footsteps seem careful, as if aware of the quiet they are entering. The monastery feels suspended, held gently between morning and afternoon. When the bell sounds again, marking the end of this interval, it does so calmly. The monk opens his eyes if they were closed. He reaches if he was seated. The body feels balanced, neither eager nor reluctant. Work resumes gradually. Tools are lifted again. Pages are turned. The fields receive hands once more. The light has changed. Shadows stretch longer. The air feels different against the skin, carrying a hint of what comes later. The monk notices these changes without naming them. They register as sensations rather than thoughts. The day continues its slow movement forward, unbroken, unhurried, carrying him with it toward the quieter hours that are already forming. The afternoon eases forward, almost unnoticed, settling into a calmer shape as the light begins to thin. The sun no longer feels directly overhead. Instead, it stretches its presence across the ground and walls at an angle, lingering briefly before moving on. The monastery seems to recognize this shift and respond by slowing even more. Work reaches its natural edges. A monk in the fields finishes the task directly before him and does not begin another. He stands quietly, hands resting, feeling the warmth still held in the soil. There is no sense of leaving something undone. What was meant to be done today has found its place. Inside, a monk sets aside his tools, wiping them carefully, not from obligation, but from habit shaped by years. The bell sounds again, calling the community to prayer. At this hour, the sound feels especially familiar, almost gentle. It does not travel far before being absorbed by stone and air, but it reaches each monk clearly enough. They turn toward the church without haste, steps slower now. Softened by the passing hours, prayer in the late afternoon carries a different weight. The body is tired, but not strained. Muscles release easily. Breathing deepens without effort. The voices remain steady, blending together into a sound that feels less like speaking and more like shared stillness. When the prayer ends, there is little work left to do. The monastery begins its quiet preparation for night. Lamps are checked. Doors are closed against the cooling air. These actions are done without discussion, each monk attending to what is near him. A light meal follows, smaller than the one at midday. Soup, perhaps, thin and warm. Bread again, always bread. The reading continues, the same calm voice, unchanged in tone. The words drift through the room without asking to be remembered. The body receives the food easily, without hunger or fullness taking focus. After the meal, silence deepens further. The corridors grow quieter, footsteps become rare. The final prayer approaches, bringing with it a sense of the day folding inward rather than ending. The monks gather one last time, movements slow and practiced, as familiar as breathing. The final prayer is brief. The voices are calm, nearly blending into the quiet around them. When it ends, candles are extinguished one by one. Darkness returns gently, without surprise or resistance. Each monk returns to his small space. The habit is removed and folded carefully, placed where it will be found again in a few hours. The bed waits, narrow and plain. The body settles into it easily, as if this moment has been expected all day. There is no review of what has passed, no anticipation of what will come. The day releases its hold quietly. Outside, night fully claims the land. Inside, breathing slows, deepens, and steadies. Sleep arrives without ceremony. Another familiar movement in the long, unbroken rhythm of monastery life. The bell is silent now, but it rests close at hand, ready to sound again when the hour returns, carrying the monk gently forward into the same calm beginning once more.